I have a client who did the 30 days of yoga with Adrienne Mishler this year. She committed to it at day 1. And she wrote to me like on day 4, she's like, I have no idea how I'm going to do all these yoga practices for the next 30 days. Like some of them are 30 minutes. Some of them I don't feel like doing. And I just said to her, don't worry about the doing. Just show up. Just show up every day. Get on the mat. Get down in child's pose and sit in child's pose for the whole practice. Who cares? Just show up. She finished the 30 days and she's still going.
Love that.
And she can't even believe it. Right? So even that small action of just showing up, just make the salad, right? Just step into your sneakers.
Yes.
Take the action. I got to tell you something. I have had countless phone calls with this client, and I just got off the phone with him one more time, and we can't get anywhere, all right? Because one day he's motivated, the next day he's not motivated. One day he's doing the things we talk about, the next day he's not. Okay, can we please just break it down? I want us to talk about motivation and the myth that it is, okay? And then I want to talk about, like, is it necessary for weight loss and health? And what do we do about it? What do we do aside from this piece of motivation? I'm sorry. I'm just feeling very
Vent away.
Frustrated. All right. Whew. Got that out. Your thoughts?
A lot to unpack there. So first off, there's no doubt motivation is a myth in that I think a lot of people who are quote unquote unmotivated, and I guess, yes, in that moment they are unmotivated, so there's no reason for the quotes, but those who are unmotivated, I think that those who are motivated or seemingly are, those who are motivated all the time, right? That it's just every day they wake up, they're raring to go 24/7. It's just like, they jump out of bed, they jump to their workouts, they jump to in a bowl of vegetables, right? Like they're just always motivated. And this is my life's work. Like I live for this. I'm not always motivated. I know a lot of people, I know professional athletes who are not always motivated, right? And I think first thing is dispelling this myth that motivation is this constant source of energy or inspiration or whatever it is. It's not. Motivation to me is more similar to the weather than anything else, right? The weather comes and goes, it ebbs and flows. It's sunny sometimes, it's rainy. And the problem with relying on motivation is it's like you're only going to show up when it's sunny and 70. And that is no bueno.
Yeah. Well, we wouldn't get anywhere. I mean, it'd be like, imagine if gas only lasted in your car for like 5 minutes, right? Like we would never get where we're going. So, okay. Right. We don't have to always feel motivated to do what it takes to get what we want, right? That's ultimately like dispelling the myth here. Motivation is great. It does feel good. And yes, there are going to be times we feel it and there are ways to create it, right?
Yes, absolutely. And like, yes, it does feel good. I mean, if I watch a Rocky movie, I'm going to feel motivated, right? I'm going to want to work out. I'm going to want to run in snow with a log over my head and do crazy stuff. But that doesn't last, right? And it's actually known as there's a term for it. It's the hot, cold empathy gap, right? Sometimes we wake up, we're raring to go, we feel good. And 5 hours later or 3 minutes later, we could feel totally different.
Right.
So again, the first step is knowing that motivation wanes. It's fleeting. It's like the wind. It is not a constant source of energy or whatever you want to call it to drive your behavior.
And it's not necessary for weight loss, for health, for fitness. It's not a key ingredient that if you're not feeling it or you find yourself on the low end of it more often than not, it doesn't mean you're doomed, right? It also doesn't mean quit.
No, definitely not. I mean, I often joke. I mean, most of the world's work is done by people who don't feel like getting out of bed in the morning, right? They still show up though. They still do it. And I think that's kind of the secret here is that like you're showing up no matter how you feel. And the reality is motivation actually stems from action, right? You do something and then you feel motivated. No one has ever told me, or I'm sure no one has ever told you, hey, Adam, I just had a great workout and I just ate a really nutritious meal. I feel awful. I feel so low motivation right now, right? No,
Right.
that's when you're feeling your best. You typically feel low motivation or no motivation when you kind of, haven't moved for a bit and you haven't necessarily ate something nutritious recently.
Right. Right. Yeah. We get it backwards, right? We think we need motivation to take action, but it's actually just the reverse. Like, take action. And guess what? Just showing up, like you were talking about, that is an action, by the way. I have a client who did the 30 days of yoga with Adrienne Mishler this year. She committed to it at day 1. And she wrote to me like on day 4, she's like, I have no idea how I'm going to do all these yoga practices for the next 30 days. Like, some of them are 30 minutes. Some of them I don't feel like doing. And I just said to her, don't worry about the doing. Just show up. Just show up every day. Get on the mat. Get down in child's pose and sit in child's pose for the whole practice. Who cares? Just show up. She finished the 30 days and she's still going.
Love that.
And she can't even believe it. Right? So even that small action of just showing up, just make the salad, right? Just step into your sneakers.
Yes.
Take the action.
Yes. Action precedes motivation, right? Motivation
Right.
is a result of action. And I think the mistake we make, though, is when I'm not motivated, and again, I am not motivated often, I don't necessarily feel like doing my full workouts that I intend to do, right? And it's hard to, and in that moment, it's like, well, if I'm not going to do that full workout, why do anything? But the key is saying, I'm going to show up, I'm going to commit to the first 5 or 10 minutes and then see how I feel. Because I'm getting myself to take action. And almost always once I start, then I feel good. It's literally transformative to move your body, right? In this instance, when we're talking about exercise, it's literally transformative when you eat something, right? There's many times where I'm dying for, ice cream or cookies or whatever it is. And then I eat fresh fruit. And like a few minutes in, I'm like, this is delicious, right? But 2 minutes ago, I was like, there's no way fruit is going to do the trick for me. There's no way, right? But I show up, I eat the fruit, and then I see how I feel, right? I show up, I go for a walk, or I move some weights around, and then I see how I feel. Action first.
Right. Well, I think sometimes people get hung up too, Adam, on what action, what is the action I should or want to be taking it. And we talk a lot about some powerful questions to ask ourselves. And I think kind of one we've skirted around here is, how do I want to feel? And ultimately, who do I want to be?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think
oh, sorry, go.
that informs. No, it's fine. Yeah, that informs the actions to take. And I think leading with how you want to feel is the first one, right?
Right. There are many times where I'm, head down in, work and I'm just focused, etc. And it's like, I want to work out, I intend to work out, but I'm not in the mood. Like, I'm just not in the mood. I'm not feeling motivated. And then I think about, how am I going to feel afterward? And I always feel great after. I've never regretted a workout. I've never regretted going for a walk. I've never regretted just going outside I've never regretted that. I've never regretted a nutritious meal either. So I think,
Right.
Focusing on how you want to feel, focusing on how you will feel is so powerful. Focusing on who you want to be.
Right. Right. All right. I feel a lot better.
So here,
Thank you.
But just to land this airplane here.
Okay.
How are we gonna, so to this client, the message is like, relying on motivation is like relying on the wind, or relying on the weather. I don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. You don't want your hopes and dreams to be reliant on the weather. That's so unpredictable. So
Yeah.
it's about understanding that it wanes, right? It ebbs and flows. When you have it, great. Use it as a gift, right? But chances are you're not going to feel motivated. But if you're not feeling motivated, focus on action. Because the more you act, the more you show up for yourself, the more motivated you're going to feel. And then it becomes this virtuous cycle, right? You start to feel more and more motivated. Whereas on the flip side, the less you do, the less you feel like doing. And then it becomes a vicious cycle.
Right. I think it's crucial, just to interrupt you, to say act forward, right? Like act forward, fall forward, act forward. Just because sometimes people are like, well, I am acting. I'm eating chips. I'm watching TV, but act forward. Or maybe even to your point, sometimes there are literally times where it's just best to stay in place, right? Like just don't go backward.
But what's an
What do you
example
think
of
about
that?
that? Oh, I mean, say you just like let's just take a client, for example, who's making progress on our program, right? They're losing weight, they're developing new skills and behaviors, they're feeling really hopeful, they're feeling motivated, and then they hit a bump. Maybe they go out of town or they have company in town that just kind of wrecks their routine. And all of a sudden they find themselves on the opposite end of motivated, feeling really low. And instead of perhaps what I say, burning themselves down, don't burn yourself to the ground, just stay where you are, haven, if you will, right? Like the idea of the mountain, you were climbing up the mountain, and maybe a bad storm came in. You're not going to back down the mountain, right? Like just hold your ground, sustain your baseline, and then you can start making progress again. And I think that's another really big key to not relying on motivation as like a dictation about what you do next.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the word hope. That actually made me think of, I think maybe it's hope, action, then motivation. Because if you don't feel hopeful, then you might not act. And I think the key to hope is, hope is a formula. Like it's A is having, a clear and defined goal. B is having a pathway to reach your goal. And C, and most importantly, is you believing you can follow the pathway. And I think on a practical basis, it's like, is what you're committing to, is what you intend to do each and every day realistic? Does it feel sustainable? Like if you have a crazy work week or a crazy day, like is doing your normal workout realistic? Is eating the way you always do realistic if you have a bunch of, dinners out or lunches out? Like likely not. And I think it's really important to make sure the plan you're trying to follow is realistic. And the importance or the key to that is scaling it down every now and then. Right? If you have a crazy week or day, scale down the plan. If you have a bunch of meals out, scale down the plan. Like it doesn't have to be perfect or nothing. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, because as we know, all or nothing leads to nothing every single time. The idea is always something, because if you're always doing something, you're always acting, and then you're likely going to always feel some motivation.
Yep.
All right, let's leave it at that. I'm feeling very motivated right now. I'm all fired up now.
I think you have a workout. You have a workout waiting for you, don't you?
Well, that's like, the last thing, and then we'll cut this, but it's like, as a writer, the rule is if you ever feel inspired, drop everything you're doing and go write. Because it's just the same thing. Like you don't always feel inspired, right? If you feel motivated, go for it. Use it. It's a gift. Use it. But it's a gift. You cannot count on it. On the flip side, again, though, if you act consistently, and I think the key to acting consistently is making sure your plan is realistic, and of course having accountability to make sure you're doing that, then you likely will feel some level of motivation. So, all right.
Okay. I think we took care of it. Hopefully my client was listening.
We'll see you guys soon.
All right, guys. Take care.